Emma Carlisle had always been the type to do her own research. A 38-year-old mother of two from Vancouver, Canada, she had grown up with a strong belief in the power of natural living. Her kitchen was stocked with organic produce, she made her own almond milk, and she could list the ingredients of every item in her pantry. Her interest in holistic health deepened after her second child, and when she began experiencing joint pain and fatigue that her doctor diagnosed as early rheumatoid arthritis, Emma was already skeptical of the pharmaceutical route. "I don't want to spend the rest of my life popping pills," she told her husband, Nate, during one of their late-night kitchen table talks. "What about the side effects? The immune suppression? There has to be another way." Emma's rheumatologist had prescribed methotrexate, a common but aggressive medication used to manage autoimmune conditions. The list of side effects scared her more than the disease itself: nausea, hair loss, liver toxicity. That last one stuck with her. "Toxic to the liver," she repeated aloud as she stared at the leaflet. She turned to the internet. Facebook groups, wellness podcasts, and influencer blogs painted a glowing picture of Ayurveda, an ancient Indian system of medicine based on natural herbs, dietary guidelines, and detoxification rituals. The stories were compelling, people claiming they reversed autoimmune disease without Western drugs, by balancing their doshas and drinking herbal teas. "I found this practitioner online," she told Nate, showing him a colorful website of a clinic in Kerala, India. "They tailor the treatment to your exact body type, and it's completely natural." Nate was hesitant. "But your doctor said the damage to your joints can be irreversible if you wait too long." Emma shook her head. "I'm not waiting. I'm choosing something better." Against her doctor's advice, Emma booked a virtual consultation with an Ayurvedic doctor in India who prescribed a customized plan: herbal capsules, detox drinks, a panchakarma routine, and dietary restrictions that eliminated gluten, dairy, and most nightshades. Her medicines arrived in carefully labeled paper packets a few weeks later. Bitter pills and brown powders that smelled strongly of spices and soil. Within a month, Emma said she felt more energized. Her joint pain hadn't vanished, but it seemed manageable. Encouraged, she began sharing her journey on social media. "Western medicine wants to put a band-aid on your symptoms," she told her growing followers. "Ayurveda heals the root cause." She posted videos of herself preparing golden milk lattes, applying oil to her joints, and practicing yoga in the soft morning light. People applauded her bravery, her commitment to natural healing. Even her doctor, Dr. Singh, expressed concern during her follow-up appointment. "Emma, these herbal treatments haven't been evaluated for safety. Some of them can affect your liver enzymes. Can we at least monitor your liver function monthly?" Emma smiled politely but firmly refused the blood tests. "If I start panicking every time I take something natural, what's the point? I trust my body." For 6 months, things seemed fine, better than fine even. Her Instagram followers doubled. Her skin glowed. Her pain was sporadic, and she believed she was healing. Then she began to feel different. First, it was the exhaustion. Not just the kind that comes from a bad night's sleep, but the bone-deep kind that left her breathless after climbing stairs. Then came the nausea, the bloating, the persistent itchiness of her skin. Her urine turned dark, and her eyes, Nate was the first to notice, took on a yellowish tint. "I think you need to see your doctor," he said one morning as she leaned over the sink, wincing. "Something's not right." Emma waved him off. "It's probably detox symptoms. They said it might get worse before it gets better." But it didn't get better. It got much worse as the weeks passed. Emma's condition deteriorated. Her skin became a strange shade of yellow, and she could no longer ignore the tightness in her abdomen, as though her liver was slowly shutting down. Her once energetic lifestyle was replaced with long hours spent lying in bed, watching the ceiling spin, her thoughts clouded by nausea. It was as though every ounce of vitality had been drained from her, leaving only a shell of the woman she used to be. Nate insisted that she see a doctor. This time she couldn't argue. Reluctantly, Emma agreed to visit Dr. Singh, but she was already certain of what he would say. "You're overreacting. It's just side effects from the herbs." She walked into his office feeling defensive, almost guilty. She had never fully disclosed the extent of her Ayurveda treatments to him, and she wasn't sure how he'd react now that her condition had worsened. Dr. Singh's face grew serious as he listened to her symptoms. He asked about the herbal supplements, the detox plans, the oils she had been using. She explained everything: her new lifestyle, the healing process, her belief in Ayurveda's potential. But as the words tumbled from her lips, she saw his concern deepening. "Emma," he said, his voice calm but firm, "I've been telling you for months now to monitor your liver function, but you haven't followed through with any tests. I've seen this before. Some herbs, especially when used in excess, can have a toxic effect on the liver. You need to have a blood test immediately." The words hung in the air like a weight she couldn't escape. Emma's heart raced as a strange sense of dread crept over her. She nodded, but deep down, she didn't want to hear the truth. The blood test results came back the next day. Dr. Singh called her, his voice tight with urgency. "Emma, your liver enzymes are dangerously elevated. This isn't detox. It's liver damage." Emma was stunned. How could this happen? It's just herbs. They're natural. I understand that, but natural doesn't always mean safe, he said gently. Certain Ayurvedic herbs, especially if taken in large quantities, can cause serious harm. You need to stop the treatment immediately. I'm referring you to a specialist. She felt a sense of panic rise in her chest. The Ayurvedic healer she'd been in contact with had promised her that her body would adapt, that the liver was a resilient organ capable of healing itself. But Emma wasn't sure her body could heal this time. Nate, who had been quietly listening from the corner, placed his hand on her shoulder. His face was pale, his concern palpable. "Emma, this isn't just about avoiding side effects anymore. This is real. We need to act fast." The specialist that Dr. Singh referred her to was a liver expert, Dr. Carla Johnson, who ran an emergency clinic for patients with liver dysfunction. After a thorough examination and several additional tests, the diagnosis was more severe than Emma had anticipated. Her liver was showing signs of acute damage, and the toxic effects of the Ayurvedic herbs had been accelerating the decline. "We're going to need to monitor you closely," Dr. Johnson explained. "At this stage, we're concerned about the possibility of irreversible liver failure if we don't intervene." Emma's mind spun. She had trusted the Ayurvedic route, convinced it would be her answer to a healthier life, but now it felt like she had unwittingly put herself in a battle for her own survival. "How long do I have?" she asked, her voice shaky. The words felt like they came from someone else, as though she were asking for someone else's life. "It's too soon to say for sure," Dr. Johnson replied, "but we're going to start with a regimen to reduce the strain on your liver. We'll also monitor you closely for signs of progression. Depending on how things go, you may need more intensive treatment." The mention of intensive treatment sent a shiver down her spine. It felt as though everything she had worked for, her commitment to natural healing, her avoidance of medications, was crumbling before her eyes. Nate sat beside her, his face pale. "We'll get through this, Emma. but this is a wake-up call. We need to make sure we're putting your health first, no matter what. Emma didn't know what to think anymore. She had wanted to find an alternative to the harsh, synthetic chemicals of Western medicine. But now she felt betrayed by the very herbs that had promised her healing. How could something so natural turn on her so viciously? The following days were a blur of tests, consultations, and medications she had never imagined she would take. They put her on a course of corticosteroids to reduce the inflammation in her liver, and her diet was severely restricted. The bright, hopeful world of Ayurveda felt so distant now, replaced by cold hospital rooms and the sterile scent of medical treatments. She couldn't stop thinking about the decision she had made. If only she had listened to her doctor earlier. If only she had been more careful. But what hurt the most was knowing that her desire for a natural solution had led her to ignore the potential risks. And now she was paying the price. The days that followed Emma's diagnosis were some of the hardest of her life. She had always been the type to take control of her health, her diet, her lifestyle, her well-being. But now, everything felt out of her hands. The once hopeful world of Ayurveda, filled with promises of healing through nature, had turned into a nightmare in the quiet hours of the night. As she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Emma couldn't shake the doubt that lingered like a shadow. Was it her fault? Had she ignored too many warning signs in her desperate attempt to avoid the very thing she feared? Pharmaceuticals? The weight of it all crushed her chest. Nate did his best to reassure her. He was a quiet force in her life, the type of person who would calmly offer support without pushing her to talk. But even he couldn't hide his own anxiety as they sat together in the sterile hospital room. The silence between them stretched, punctuated only by the hum of the machines that monitored her liver function. Emma's thoughts often drifted to her YouTube channel, Behind the Symptoms. She had started the channel a few months ago, sharing her journey with her followers, stories about health, the struggles of balancing motherhood and self-care, and tips for living a holistic life. She wanted to inspire others to take control of their health, just as she had done. But now, the thought of facing her viewers felt daunting. How could she continue to advocate for a lifestyle she felt had betrayed her? She thought back to the initial excitement she had felt when her channel started to gain traction. Health-related content was something that spoke deeply to her, and her emotional connection to the message was clear in every video. "I just want to help people," she'd said in one of her earlier posts. The words were sincere then, but now they echoed back at her with a bitter edge. "Maybe it's time to share this," she whispered to herself one night, sitting at her laptop in the hospital room. The thought was terrifying, but it also felt like the right step. Maybe this is what people need to hear. The truth behind the journey. Her finger hovered over the keyboard. She started to type, her words coming slowly at first. "I've been living a lie. I believed that by avoiding synthetic medications, I could heal myself naturally. But now, I'm faced with the harsh reality that my body isn't as invincible as I thought. I switched to Ayurveda, hoping for the best, but in the process, I may have destroyed my liver." She paused, her fingers still. Her head felt heavy as she leaned back in her chair, contemplating the decision. To tell her followers the truth would be exposing her vulnerability, her own failings. But it also might give others a chance to learn from her mistakes. As her fingers moved again, she typed, "I don't regret wanting a better, more natural life, but I do regret not listening to my body, not considering the risks that came with the herbs I trusted. Sometimes the cure is more dangerous than the disease." The post wasn't easy to write, but it felt like a weight had lifted off her shoulders. In that moment, she realized something that had been nagging her throughout her illness. She wasn't just telling her story for her. She was telling it for those who would come after her, for the ones who were still seeking the perfect solution to their health problems, the ones who hadn't yet faced the reality of their own choices. The video went live the following morning. Within hours, the comments began to flood in. Many were supportive, offering well wishes, prayers, and stories of their own struggles with alternative treatments. But there were others, voices that echoed the doubt and suspicion Emma had been battling all along. Some questioned her decision to go public with her story. Others pointed to the limitations of Western medicine and criticized her for abandoning the healing methods that had worked for so many. But Emma didn't mind. This was a part of her journey now, the truth raw and unfiltered. The support from her followers reminded her of why she had started this in the first place. She had always been a voice for those searching for answers, and now, more than ever, her voice mattered. Her next checkup with Dr. Johnson. Emma was prepared for more bad news. Her liver enzymes were still elevated, but they weren't increasing as rapidly as before. It was a small victory, but it gave her hope. She wasn't out of the woods yet, but she wasn't being consumed by the disease either. Dr. Johnson was cautiously optimistic. You've made some significant changes to your treatment plan, Emma. The herbal supplements are out of your system now, and the corticosteroids are helping to control the inflammation. But it's still early. We'll keep monitoring your liver function. But for now, take it easy. Emma nodded. It wasn't the cure she had hoped for, but it was a start. The road to recovery was long, but at least now she felt like she was on the right path. And maybe, just maybe, she would be able to help others avoid the same mistakes she had made. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of medical appointments, strict dietary changes, and frequent tests. Emma was forced to confront the harsh reality of her situation every single day. She no longer had the luxury of ignoring the damage done to her body. Each day felt like a test of her resolve, her ability to adapt and trust in the process of healing, both physically and emotionally at first. It was hard to let go of the ideals that had guided her health journey for so long. Ayurveda had promised her balance, vitality, and natural healing. It had felt like the perfect solution, a way to avoid the harsh chemicals of pharmaceutical medicine and reconnect with the earth's natural remedies. Yet here she was, in a hospital gown, receiving medications that seemed to contradict everything she had once believed in. I thought I was doing the right thing, Emma whispered to Nate one night as they sat together on the couch. I wanted to be different. I wanted to be healthier. But now I feel like I've failed. Nate squeezed her hand. You haven't failed, Em. You were trying to help yourself. It's just, sometimes things don't go as planned. But that doesn't mean we give up. Her heart swelled with gratitude. Nate had always been her anchor, and in moments like these, when she was lost in doubt, his steady support was what kept her grounded. As time passed, Emma began to understand the complexity of her situation. The Ayurvedic herbs that had once seemed so harmless were now the culprit. While some of the herbs were indeed beneficial, others had been too potent, especially in combination with her body's unique constitution. The truth was, Ayurveda, like any other system of healing, wasn't one size fits all. It required a deep understanding of one's body, and Emma had overlooked that fact in her desperation to find a solution. With each passing day, Emma's health slowly improved. The yellow tint in her skin began to fade, and the bloating in her abdomen subsided. But the journey wasn't easy. There were still moments when the fatigue would return, when she would look at herself in the mirror and wonder if she would ever fully recover. Would her liver ever fully heal? Would she be able to reclaim the vibrant health she had once promised herself? Her follow-up visits with Dr. Johnson brought a mix of relief and apprehension. The liver was slowly healing, but it would take time. Emma knew she couldn't rush it. She had to listen to her body, something she hadn't done when she first started her Ayurvedic journey. "I'm glad to see you're improving," Dr. Johnson told her one afternoon, reviewing her most recent test results. "But you're not out of the woods yet. We'll keep monitoring your progress closely. But I need you to continue with the medications and follow the guidelines I've given you. Your liver needs to heal completely before we can talk about reducing the treatment." Emma nodded, grateful that things weren't getting worse, but also frustrated by the slow pace of recovery. She had hoped that this journey would be quicker, that her body would bounce back in a matter of weeks. But healing was not something that could be rushed. The harsh reality of her situation was that true recovery would take months, perhaps even years. But she was determined that in the meantime, she began adjusting to her new lifestyle. No more late-night herbal concoctions or mysterious powders. Instead, she relied on a carefully balanced diet designed to nourish her liver, supplemented with Western medicine that helped support her body's healing process. She incorporated gentle yoga and meditation into her routine to reduce stress, a vital component of recovery. Slowly but surely, Emma started to feel like herself again, though she knew that the road ahead was long. She returned to her YouTube channel, Behind the Symptoms, but with a new message. The story she had shared months ago about Ayurveda, health, and natural healing was still out there. But now, Emma's content was focused on transparency and balance. She wasn't going to claim that one method of healing was superior to another, but she was going to emphasize the importance of understanding one's body and being cautious with alternative treatments. Her first video after her hospitalization was a raw, unfiltered account of her journey. She shared her regrets and lessons learned, but also her hope for the future. "I've learned a lot through this experience," she said, looking directly into the camera. "I wanted to believe that natural was always better, but sometimes it's about finding what truly works for you. It's about listening to your body and finding balance. I'm not anti-Ayurveda, but I'm pro-health. And right now, that means taking the best from both worlds, traditional and modern medicine." The response was overwhelming.